try again, and you will succeed. Today, I would like to start our presentation on this note. So, welcome, good evening. How is everyone? I hope the preparation is going on in full swing. I am Rita Gurbani from Super Grad Scat from Top Rankers, and today we are going to take up some philosophy passages and psychology passages which have appeared in the previous year question papers of CAT. So, let's start with today's topic. I would like you to read the first slide for a minute or two. I just step aside and then we'll solve the passage together. The next slide. Let's have a look at the questions. Taking the passage in detail, as you can see, this had appeared in VARC CAT 2020 slot 2. So the passage is based on psychology, the concept of aggression. Let's start reading it together. Aggression is any behavior that is directed towards injuring, harming, or inflicting pain on another living being or group of beings. So the author starts with the topic that is aggression. Generally, the victim or victims of aggression must wish to avoid such behavior in order for it to be considered true aggression. Aggression is also categorized according to its ultimate intent. Intent means intention. Why does this happen? What is the reason behind this aggression? Hostile aggression is an aggressive act that results from anger and is intended to inflict pain or injury because of that anger. So the author tells us about the hostile anger कि ये किसी को पेन या किसी को चोट पहुंचाने के उद्देश्य से किया जाता है. Instrumental aggression, now this is another type of aggression, is an aggressive act that is regarded as a means to an end rather than pain or injury. नाउ इसका कोई खास महत्व पेन किसी को देने के लिए या चोट पहुंचाने के लिए नहीं है. इसका कोई खास उद्देश्य है, कोई और मीनिंग है इसका. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, नाउ ही गिव्स अस एन एग्जाम्पल. एन एनिमी कॉम्बेटेंट may be subjected to torture in order to extract useful intelligence. Now, the imagination is that of an enemy soldier जिसको कि पकड़ा गया है so that उसमें से यूजफुल इंफॉर्मेशन निकाली जा सके, उसे टॉर्चर किया जाता है. इंटेलिजेंस मीन्स इंफॉर्मेशन. Though those inflicting the torture may have no real feelings of anger or animosity towards their subject, उनकी उससे कोई खास दुश्मनी, पर्सनल दुश्मनी या पर्सनल एंगर नहीं होगा. दैट इज नॉट पॉसिबल towards their subject. Subject is the victim. The concept of aggression is very broad and includes many categories of behavior. For example, verbal aggression. Verbal means oral, जो कि आप शब्दों के द्वारा पहुंचाते हैं. Street crime, child abuse, spouse abuse, group conflict, war, etc. So in this line, we have got many examples of aggression. For example, verbal aggression. Then comes the street crime. Then comes child abuse. Then one is spouse. Spouse is one's husband or wife. Spouse abuse. Group conflict, war, or etc. So when it goes to a high level and it happens between a number of people, it is called group conflict. A number of theories and models of aggression have arisen to explain these diverse forms of behavior. बहुत सारी theories बताई गई हैं कि इन behaviors के पीछे reason क्या है, and these theories models tend to be categorized according to their specific focus, according to the focus, according to the intention, according to the purpose. इनको categorize किया गया है. The most common system of categorization groups the various approaches to aggression into three separate areas. Now, three separate areas के ऊपर ये categorization based है, based upon the three key variables that are present whenever any aggressive act or set of acts is committed. The first variable is the aggressor him or herself. The first is the person who perpetrates violence or aggression on somebody else, the aggressor. The second is the social situation or circumstance in which the aggressive act occurs or aggressive acts occur. The second is the social situation in which the act of aggression has been committed. The third variable is a target or victim of aggression. So, in this paragraph, the author has talked about three key variables. The first is the aggressor, second is the situation, the circumstance, and the third is the victim or the target जो शिकार हुआ है aggression का. Moving ahead, the next paragraph. Regarding theories and research on aggressor, the fundamental focus is on the factors that lead an individual or group to commit aggressive acts. So, author says that when the discussion was made or the research was made, so what was the fundamental focus that lead an individual to commit aggressive acts? That is to be found out. What is that? At the most basic level, some argue that aggressive urges and actions are the result of inborn biological factors. So, one reason which has come into light is because of their inborn biological factors. So, they have a desire which cannot be suppressed. They have an urge, बहुत ज़्यादा बड़ी desire होती है to perpetrate या to involve in an act of aggression. So, the first reason is this one, the global biological factors. Sigmund Freud, 1930, proposed that all individuals are born with a death instinct that predisposes us to a variety of aggressive behaviors. Now, Sigmund Freud is a well known exponent of psychology. He is very famous for the theories which he has given. So, according to one of his important theories, what does he propose? What does he suggest? That all individuals are born with a death instinct. सभी individuals जो हैं उनमें एक डेथ इंस्टिंक्ट होता है जिसको वो लेकर के पैदा होते हैं, जिसको वो लेकर के जन्म लेते हैं. And it predisposes us, it inclines us, disposition, predisposition. Disposition का मतलब है आपका conduct या आपका nature या आपका character. So it predisposes us to a variety of aggressive behaviors, including suicide, that is self-directed aggression. So these are the findings of Sigmund Freud, including suicide. The first is the self-directed aggression and mental illness, possibly due to an unhealthy or unnatural suppression of aggressive urges. So when the urges are suppressed, जब इनको रोकने की कोशिश की जाती है, that results in mental illness. Whose finding is this? This is the finding of Sigmund Freud. Other influential perspectives supporting a biological basis for aggression conclude that humans evolved with an abnormally low neural inhibition of aggressive impulses in comparison to other species. What is neural? Neural is anything which is related to neurons, anything which is related to nerves of the human being. So, what is concluded? Other influential perspectives supporting a biological basis. So, ये जो biological basis which was spoken of by Sigmund Freud, along with that, it has been concluded that humans have been evolved with an abnormally low neural inhibition of aggressive impulses as compared to other species, and that humans possess a powerful instinct for property accumulation and territorialism. Territorialism, break this word, it comprises territory. Territory means specific land. It's related to a particular piece of land or the assertion of rights to a territory. This talks about the assertion of rights to a particular, to a specific territory. So once again, we read this sentence. What does it mean? Other influential perspectives supporting a biological basis for aggression conclude that humans evolved with an abnormally low neural inhibition of aggressive impulses and that humans possess a powerful instinct for property accumulation and territorialism. It is proposed that this instinct accounts for hostile behaviors. Now, what is suggested that because of these instincts, एक तो ये है the assertion of rights for a particular piece of land, and another is property accumulation, hoarding, जमा करना property को. Because of this, what has happened? This is the instinct which accounts for hostile behaviors. Hostile behaviors means behaviors which are far from being affectionate or kind or humanitarian. Hostile means like an enemy, ranging from minor street crime to world wars. So whether it is a minor street crime, road पर हो रहा है, या it is happening on such a big scale, that is a war. What is behind that? What is in the basis? What is in the basis? The powerful instinct for property accumulation and territorialism. These are the findings. Hormonal factors also appear to play a significant role in fostering aggressive tendencies. Fostering is supporting. And another reason the author says is hormonal factors. It is related to the hormonal factors also that support aggressive tendencies. For example, now there is another example. The hormone testosterone has been shown to increase aggressive behaviors when injected into animals. So, studies have shown that when this hormone, testosterone, is injected in animals, it gives rise to hostile behavior or aggressive behavior. Men and women convicted of violent crimes, the people who were found as criminals, also possess significantly higher levels of testosterone than men and women convicted of non-violent crimes. So, when a comparison was made, so when it was compared that men and women, the criminals who were into violent crimes, they had a higher level of this hormone as compared to the ones who were involved in non-violent crimes. So, this the third reason has been attributed to the hormones of the body, human body. Numerous studies comparing different age groups, racial, ethnic groups, and cultures also indicate that men overall are more likely to engage. So, this is another finding, another study, another result of the study that men overall are more likely to engage in a variety of aggressive behaviors. For example, sexual assault, aggravated assault, etc., than women. So a comparison has been made between the two genders also, and it was found that the males, they have been found to have a higher aggressive behavior level as compared to the females. One explanation for higher levels of aggression in men is based on the assumption that on average men have higher levels of testosterone than women. So this is the culprit. So again, this is the reason higher level of this particular hormone, which is found in men as compared to women, which is the reason, or you can say the cause behind the increased level of aggression, which is found in men. So we have found that in these two paragraphs, the author has spoken about aggression and what are the three variables, the three key variables, and what are the studies, what do they indicate. So we have also found out the reasons behind these studies. So there are biological reasons, then there are hormonal reasons, and then there are these social reasons, which is related to accumulation or hoarding of property and land, having a specific right on a particular land. This gives rise to an urge. So, after having summarized the passage, let's go to the questions. Let's do each question now, examining all the options in detail. So, look at the first question. The author identifies three essential factors according to which theories of aggression are most commonly categorized. The three essential means important factors जिसकी वजह से ये theories organize की गई हैं, categorize की गई हैं. Which of the following options is closest to the factors identified by the author? So here we have been given four options in which three key variables have been given. the factors according to which the theories have been formulated or categorized or that have been classified. So the first is psychologically, sociologically, medically. The second is aggressor, circumstances of aggression and victim. The third is extreme, moderate, mild. The fourth is hostile, instrumental, hormonal. So when we look at these options, very clearly we can find that there is no mention of extreme, moderate, or mild in the given passage. In fact, we can be a little bit of the view that these words, since they have occurred in the passage, I'm talking about the last option, hostile and hormonal. Again, though these words occur in the passage, but they are not the key components or the key variables which the author has spoken about. Let us examine the first one also psychologically, sociologically, medically. Now, this is giving a very broad kind of a picture which is actually not our answer. So we are left with this one aggressor, circumstances of aggression, and victim. Let us go back to the passage to just see where we found these. We found these in the first paragraph, last line. Based upon the three key variables that are present whenever any aggressive act or set of acts. The first variable, this is the first variable, even we had mapped it when we were doing the passage. So this is the advantage of mapping the content. The first is the aggressor, the second is the situation or the circumstance, and the third is the victim himself or herself. So these are the three variables about which the question is asking. Clearly, our answer option is B. This is the answer option. Correct answer is B. Aggressor, circumstances of aggression and victim. Moving ahead with question number 2. The author discusses all of the following arguments in the passage except that. The author discusses all of the following arguments means we may find these arguments in the passage, but there is one argument which is not found, which is not being discussed by the author. Let us examine these in detail. The first one, men in general are believed to be more hormonally driven to exhibit violence than women. This we had just now studied in the second slide, the last paragraph, the last line. This has come. First option about men. That increased levels of this hormone, testosterone, have been found in men as compared to women. So this has appeared in the passage. B. Several studies indicate that aggression may have roots in the biological condition of humanity. This also we read in the second paragraph here. At the most basic level, some argue that aggressive urges and actions are the result of inborn biological factors. So here clearly our answer option B is ruled out because this has also been discussed in the passage, that there are biological urges which make or which force the human being to be involved in the acts of aggression. Let us see the look at the option number C. The nature of aggression can vary depending on several factors, including intent. Intent is intention. This had come in the very first paragraph here. Aggression is also categorized according to its ultimate intent, and then there were other reasons also which were given related to the categories of behavior and the theories. So, of course, intent has been mentioned. So, this option is also ruled out. C option. It has also been discussed in the passage. Now, let us examine option D. Aggression in most societies is kept under control through moderating the death instinct identified by Fry. Now, this has clearly been mentioned about the death instinct, which was a part of the major theory of this eminent psychologist. But then there is no mention of keeping this aggression under control. So this is what happens when we try to find out the answers in a state of hurry or in a state of panic. We just match the words which are given in the passage without understanding the actual meaning of the option, and we may take it. But thankfully here we find that we have already ruled out the first three options. So here we find that this particular mention has not been made in the passage. So our answer option is option D, that aggression in most societies is kept under control through moderating the death instinct identified by Freud. Freud has, of course, identified that man is born with a death tendency, death instinct, but this has not been discussed further than this. So our answer option is option D. Moving ahead, question 3. All of the following statements can be seen as logically implied by the arguments of the passage. Implied means this is the corollary that we have got. ये हमको समझ में आता है पैसेज को पढ़ने के बाद, but एक है जो कि उसमें नहीं है. So again we have to find out that option or that sentence which is not being discussed in the passage. First one, the Freudian theory of suicide as self inflicted aggression implies that an aggressive act need not be sought to be avoided in order for it to be considered aggression. This has, of course, been mentioned when we discussed Freudian theory of suicide, as self inflicted aggression implies that an aggressive act need not be sought to be avoided in order for it to be considered aggression. So, looking at the option number two, a common theory of aggression is that it is a result of an abnormally low neural regulation of testosterone. So, this is again implied in the passage through the arguments that it depends upon the neural regulation of this hormone testosterone. See, if the alleged means the given aggressive act is not sought to be avoided, it cannot really be considered aggression. If it is not sought to be avoided. Why? Because here the third person means, if you remember the third key variable, that is the victim himself or herself. If he seeks or he or she seeks to avoid it, then it cannot be actually considered aggression. So these three have been implied in the discussion which is made by the author in the passage. Look at the last. Freud's theory of aggression proposes that aggression results from the suppression of aggressive urges. Freud's theory of aggression proposes that aggression results from the suppression of aggressive urges. He has told, when we take this back in the second paragraph, that all individuals are born with a death instinct, including suicide and the suppression of the unnatural. See this one, possibly due to an unhealthy or unnatural suppression of aggressive urges. So this has also been mentioned. So now when we again consider the options, or we even go back where the mention of neural, yes, neural inhibition. See, other influential perspectives supporting a biological basis for aggression conclude that humans evolved with an abnormally low neural inhibition. So, humans evolved with an abnormally low neural inhibition of aggressive impulses in comparison to other species. So, this has also been mentioned. So when we eliminate the other options, we find that we are left with this option number B, which has been mentioned. So our answer option is option B. We have to rule out A, C, and D. A common theory of aggression is that it is a result of an abnormally low neural regulation of testosterone. Taking up the next question, an enemy combatant may be subjected to torture in order to extract useful intelligence though those inflicting the torture may have no real feelings of anger or animosity towards their subject. This has been quoted in the passage as an example to prove that it may not be necessary that the person who wants to involve in an aggressive act actually wants to inflict pain. वो किसी को नुकसान ही पहुंचाना चाहता है, ये जरूरी नहीं है, उसके लिए ये एग्जाम्पल कोट किया गया है. So what is the question? Which one of the following best explicates the larger point being made by the author here? Explicate means explain in a clear cut manner, explain in detail. Explain in detail. So, what does the author want us to understand? First, information revealed by subjecting an enemy combatant to torture is not always reliable because of the animosity involved. Now he says that information which is revealed, which is found by subjecting an enemy combatant to torture is not always reliable. It may or may not be. It may be reliable, it may not be reliable. It has not been given very clearly, and there is no hint of this in the passage also. B. When an enemy combatant refuses to reveal information, the use of torture can sometimes involve real feelings of hostility. Now, this may vary from person to person, that actually the person was handling this combatant in an objective manner. So, to say that he did not have his personal feelings of animosity or hostility against that person, but since he found that he was not giving him the proper information, so this person who is inflicting torture has become very aggressive. ये हो भी सकता है, ये नहीं भी हो सकता है. Again, it is a matter of speculation. See, in certain kinds of aggression, inflicting pain is not the objective and is no more than a utilitarian means to achieve another end. No more than a utilitarian means. Utilitarian means useful. So वो एक useful means से ज्यादा कुछ नहीं है. Inflicting pain करना objective नहीं है. To give the pain is not the purpose, is not the objective, but to find out information is the purpose. So this is what we have learned here. This example has been quoted for this reason only. Still, before finalizing the answer, let us inspect the last option also before finally deciding on the answer choice. D. The use of torture to extract information is most effective when the torturer is not emotionally involved in the torture. Similar reasoning can be applied as we did for A and B कि the use of torture सबसे ज़्यादा effective होता है when the torturer is not emotionally involved in the torture. So again, this can be true, this may not be true, but we have the answer in option C, wherein it is clearly mentioned that inflicting pain is not the aim or the objective. It is neither the purpose nor the objective, but it is another purpose, or it is just a method. It is utilitarian means useful method to achieve another end. What is the other end? Other end is to extract information as per this example, just to extract proper information. So our answer option is option C. So in this way you find, dear students, that reading carefully, delving into the in-depth understanding of the passage makes it possible for us to find out the correct answer choices. Now let's move ahead. There is another passage which appeared in 2020 VARC slot 3, and this is a passage based on philosophy. So I would just step aside and I would like you to read the first slide for a minute. Slide 2. Have a look at the questions. Questions. 1. What is the meaning of decode? 2. What is decode? 3. What is decode? 4. What is decode? 5. What is decode? 6. What is decode? 7. What is decode? 8. What is decode? 9. What is decode? 10. What is decode? 11. What is decode? 12. What is decode? 13. What is decode? 14. What is decode? 15. What is decode? 16. What is decode? 17. What is decode? 18. What is decode? 19. What is decode? 20. What is decode? 21. What is decode? 22. What is decode? 23. What is decode? 24. What is decode? 25. What is decode? 26. What is decode? 27. What is decode? 28. What is decode? 29. What is decode? 30. What is decode? 31. What is decode? 32. What is decode? 33. What is decode? 34. What is decode? 35. What is decode? 36. What is decode? 37. What is decode? 38. What is decode? 39. What is decode? 40. What is decode? 41. What is decode? 42. What is Next question. Last question, going back to the passage, you will find that in this passage there is a mention of ancient philosophers as well as the more contemporary or the more recent ones. So let's start reading the passage. Although one of the most contested concepts in political philosophy, human nature is something on which most people seem to agree. Political philosophy. In olden days, when philosophers spoke about different things like truth, honesty, life, meaning of death, justice, there they also spoke about society. They also spoke about administration. Hence comes the term political philosophy. So, although one of the most contested concepts in political philosophy, human nature is something on which most people seem to agree. Human nature. By and large, according to Rutger Bregman in his new book Humankind. So, Rutger Bregman is a Dutch author and philosopher. In his new book Humankind, we have a rather pessimistic view, not of ourselves existing. Exactly, pessimistic means the one who looks at the negative side of things or the one who is hopeless, but of everyone else. We see other people as selfish, untrustworthy, and dangerous, and therefore we behave towards them with defensiveness and suspicion. This was how the 17th century philosopher Thomas Hobbes conceived our natural state to be. Now, there is a mention of an ancient philosopher, Thomas Hobbes, who conceived our natural state to be. What did he conceive? What did he form the idea about our natural self, believing that all that stood between us and violent anarchy was a strong state and firm leadership. So, Thomas Hobbes, what view is coming across? That he did not believe in the innate goodness of man. But in following Hobbes, paragraph number 2, argues Bregman, we ensure that the negative view we have of human nature, see, the negative view we have of human nature is reflected back at us. He instead puts his faith, he instead, now this is very important. This can be considered as a transition word also. Though he makes comparison, he talks about Hobbes' philosophy, Hobbes' ideology, but then he contrasts it by using this instead. He instead puts his faith. Who puts his faith? Bregman, this author. Roger Bregman, he puts his faith in Jean-Jacques Rousseau, the 18th century French thinker. So, Rousseau is a philosopher of all times. He was a writer, he was a historian, he was an author. I said he was a philosopher. He is very, very famously known for French Revolution and his revolutionary ideas. One of his ideas is man is always born free, but he is put in chains in every or in any society. So his view is completely opposite to that of Thomas Hobbes' view. Let us read this again. But in following Hobbes, argues Bregman, we ensure that the negative view we have of human nature is reflected back at us. He instead puts his faith in Jean-Jacques Rousseau, the 18th century French thinker who famously declared that man was born free and it was civilization. Civilization means society, culture, societal presence, societal pressure with its coercive powers. Coercive is something, where you force somebody to do something despite his, against his free will. So when you force somebody or when you pressurize somebody into doing something against his wish in an act which is against his will, that is to coerce. Okay. So, with its coercive powers, social classes, and restrictive laws that put him in chains. So, what is happening? Rousseau says that man was born free, and it was civilization with its coercive powers, social classes, and restrictive laws that put him in chains. So he advocates the goodness of man, in other words. And here we find a comparison between the theory or the principle of Thomas Hobbes and Rousseau. And here we have another author, Mr. Bregman, who compares these two and arrives at some decision or some solution. Let's see, or some you can say viewpoint. Let us see how it goes further. Hobbes and Rousseau are seen as the two poles of the human nature. They are seen as the two poles, means they are diametrically opposite. दोनों बिल्कुल अलग अलग हैं. Hobbes and Rousseau are seen as the two poles of the human nature argument, and it is no surprise that Bregman strongly sides with the Frenchman. Bregman sides means किसकी तरफ है? Bregman supports Rousseau. So this has been made very clear here. Bregman's views aligns with that of Rousseau's. ठीक है? He takes Rousseau's intuition and paints a picture of a prelapsarian idyll in which, for the better part of 3 lakh years, Homo sapiens lived a fulfilling life in harmony with nature. So, what is prelapsarian? A reference is made to the Bible, in which there is a talk of Garden of Eden. In that Garden of Eden, before man was spoiled, he was pristine, he was innocent, he had a clean heart and a very clear conscience. So, what is that state? This is an imaginary ideal. Ideal means a state of imagination in which man was unspoiled and innocent initially. Man was unspoiled and innocent initially. So, this is the belief that this ideal also relates to serenity, shanti or sukoon, in which for the better part of 3 lakh years, Homo sapiens means human beings, Manav Jati, lived a fulfilling life in harmony with nature. Harmony with nature, nature के साथ एक मेक होकर के रहते थे लोग. Then we discovered agriculture. उसके बाद आया agriculture. And for the next 10,000 years, it was all property, war, greed, and injustice. So, what is the philosophy of Rousseau? That initially, or you can say, as far as Bregman is considered, these views are both identical. What do they say? That initially man was living in such a pristine state, जहाँ पे कोई झूठ नहीं, कोई धोखा नहीं था. But when afterwards agriculture came, and then after that it was related to property, greed, war, and injustice. So all these vices, in short, you can say, सारी जो दुर्गुण थे, सारी जो बुराइयां थी, they came after this. So here basically there is a description of the vices, bad qualities. It was abandoning our nomadic. Now the author goes further and says that it was abandoning. Abandon is to leave. छोड़ दिया. Our nomadic lifestyle. पहले कैसे रहते थे? Nomads, बंजारे. Go to one place, live there for some time, then again leave, then again go to. Not a permanent place of residence. This was the nomadic lifestyle. So man has left his nomadic lifestyle and then domesticating animals, says Bregman. Other thing what man did was he started domesticating animals, your cattle, है ना, भेड़ बकरी, ठीक है, मुर्गियां. That brought about infectious diseases such as measles, smallpox, tuberculosis, syphilis, malaria, cholera, and plague. So जब इस तरीके से सिविलाइजेशन आगे बढ़ा, so it brought in its wake ये बुराइयां, दुर्गुण भी आ गए, उसमें डिजीजेस भी थे, एग्रीकल्चर और डोमेस्टिकेशन ऑफ एनिमल्स के बाद. ठीक है, दिस मे बी ट्रू, दिस मे बी ट्रू. ये कौन कह रहा है? दिस इज द व्यू ऑफ द ऑथर. But what Bregman never really seems to get to grips with is that pathogens were not the only things that grew with agriculture. ये किसके views हैं? These are the views of the author. Let's pay considerable attention to this line where he is seen to be opposing Bregman कि Bregman के समझ में नहीं आया है that pathogens were not the only things. केवल ये बैक्टीरिया, केवल ये वायरस ही नहीं आए हैं हमारे पास. Not the only things that grew with agriculture. So did the number of humans. Humans भी तो बढ़ गए ना. It is one thing to maintain friendly relations and a property less mode of living when you are 30 or 40 hunter gatherers following the food. That is another thing, that you are a small group, you are just hunters, you are food gatherers, you are living a nomadic lifestyle, so you only have to pay attention to limited worries or limited uses or limited needs. But it's one thing to maintain this, but ye dekho, life becomes a great deal more complex and knowledge far more extensive when there are settlements of many thousands. So these are the views of the author, that when it is a question of many people who have to live together, then the priorities get changed. Now, civilization has become synonymous with peace and progress. Civilization synonymous with peace, progress, and wilderness with war and decline, writes Bregman. These are the views of Bregman, that when you talk about civilization, you have in mind a picture of peace and progress. But wilderness means there's a lot of confusion where there is nothing which is growing, कुछ भी पैदावार नहीं है. It is infertile place or land, so there you find war and decline. In reality, for most of human existence, it was the other way round. Other way round matlab wilderness was associated with peace and progress, and civilization was like war and decline. See how the conditions change. Okay? Whereas traditional history depicts the collapse of civilizations as dark ages in which everything gets worse. Now, traditional history talks about the collapse. Collapse यानी बर्बाद हो जाना. Okay? Drive away, collapse of civilizations as dark ages in which everything gets worse. Modern scholars, he claims, see them more as a reprieve in which the enslaved, gain their freedom and culture flourishes. So this reprieve is nothing but a relief from punishment, maybe a temporary one, a temporary relief from punishment or penalty or a suffering, an ordeal, you can say. So see them more as a reprieve in which the enslaved gain their freedom and culture flourishes. So what happens in such a situation? The enslaved, they gain their freedom. The people who were captivated, now they become free and culture flourishes. Like much else in this book, the truth is probably somewhere between the two stated positions. Very important line. Like much else in this book. The book, which one? Which is written by Mr. Bregman. So the author says that the truth is probably somewhere between the two stated positions. This is a very important paragraph of the entire passage. In any case, the fear of civilizational collapse. Now comes the concluding passage, the concluding paragraph. The fear of civilizational collapse, Bregman believes, is unfounded. This belief is unfounded, मतलब baseless. Unfounded means जिसका कोई base, जिसका कोई बुनियाद नहीं है, baseless. It is a result of what the Dutch biologist Frans de Waal calls. Now, one more mention, one more philosopher. He recently passed away in this year. Yes, he passed away, I think, in March or April. So, this philosopher calls veneer theory the idea that just below the surface, our bestial nature is waiting to break out. Bestial is like a beast, animal like. Bestial is like an animal, means ferocious. Janwar is waiting to break out. What is veneer? Veneer is actually a thin film, a slight, flimsy kind of a covering, which is attractive. So veneer theory, veneer is a thin, attractive covering, which is used for decorative purposes. So let's read the sentence again. In any case, the fear of civilizational collapse, Bregman believes, is unfounded. It is a result of what the Dutch biologist Frans de Waal calls veneer theory, the idea that just below the surface, our bestial nature is waiting to break out. Waiting to break out means to come up on the surface. There is are those instants. So this is similar to Hobbes' theory. There is a great deal of reassuring human decency to be taken from this bold and thought provoking book, and the wealth of evidence in support of the contention. The contention is the argument, the idea that the sense of who we are as a species has been deleteriously, deleteriously distorted in a subtle way. What has been distorted? किसका change हो गया है? This one. The sense of who we are as species has been distorted. But it seems equally misleading to offer the false choice of Rousseau and Hobbes. False choice of Rousseau and Hobbes when clearly humanity encompasses both. So finally, where does the author take us? What is the conclusion? He is neither towards Rousseau, neither does he support Rousseau completely, nor does he support Hobbes completely. And he says that humanity encompasses both. Somewhere like this one, between the two stated positions. Okay. So a tricky passage, I must say, but it has appeared already. So we should be ready for such passages to delve deeper, to find the underlying ideas, the undercurrents, what the author wants to say, and then reaching to the correct answer. So let's proceed with the questions now. According to the author, the main reason why Bregman contrasts life in pre-agricultural societies with agricultural societies is he talks about what happened in before agriculture developed and then what happened after agriculture developed. So why does he make this contrast? Why does he make this comparison? Let's read first. Bolster his argument, bolster his support that people are basically decent. But progress, as we know, it can make them selfish. Very first answer, very good option, but we will go through the other options also. B. Make the argument that an environmentally conscious lifestyle is a more harmonious way of living. There is, as such, no mention of environment. Whether an environmentally conscious lifestyle is more harmonious way of living, this has not been discussed. In fact, there is no such hint also in the passage. C. Highlight the enormous impact that settled farming had on population growth. Now, settled farming means once the agriculture became a very important prerequisite for life, settled farming, it had an impact on population growth. This is also not the crux of the matter. Population growth की बात बहुत indirectly की गई है when the author says, look at this. Yes, here. Here, it's one thing to maintain friendly relations and a propertyless mode of living when you are 30 or 40 hunter gatherers following the food, but life becomes a great deal more complex and knowledge far more extensive when there are settlements of many thousands. So here there is a brief hint कि जब population बढ़ा तो चीजें change हो गई. Yes, there is a brief hint, but there is no explicit connection as you can see. That settled farming had an enormous impact on population growth. कि the population grew because of the settled farming, that has not been mentioned. So there is no mention. Last option, advocate the promotion of less complex societies as a basis for greater security and prosperity. So here, do we have the feeling that the society is less complex, means it is more simple, more primitive sort of, so it is a basis for greater security and prosperity, that there is no connection has been established. इन दोनों के बीच में as such कोई relation establish, कोई connection establish होता हुआ we don't find in the passage. So this is also out of question. ये ऑप्शन भी हमारा goes away. Now we are left with the first one. इसको और जज करते हैं. Bolster his argument that people are basically decent. People are basically good natured. They are innately good, but progress can make them selfish. Progress means when you talk about agriculture, when you talk about property, when you talk about growth, so then man becomes selfish, and then in his selfishness, he leads himself to war and other dishonest practices. So clearly, our answer option is option A. A is the answer option. Next, none of the following views is expressed in the passage except. So we have to find out none of the following views is expressed in the passage means we have to find that view which is expressed in the passage. The option which is mentioned. Look at the question, look at the language. It is a little tricky. I must say, you may get into a trap in such a question, in such a language, but then understand the question and things become clear. So, for that understanding, it is important to maintain a clutter free mind and there shouldn't be any panic. Yes, basically it is all about the approach, dear students. So now we have this. Hobbes and Rousseau disagreed on the fundamental nature of humans, but both believed in the need for a strong state. Both believed in the need for the strong state. Okay. B, Bregman agrees with Hobbes. Bregman agrees with Hobbes that firm leadership is needed to ensure property rights and regulate strife. Strife means where there is a lot of friction, that is strife. Next, the author of the review believes in the linear theory of human nature. D, most people agree with Hobbes' pessimistic view of human nature as being intrinsically untrustworthy and selfish. Let's examine each option in detail because the language has to be paid attention to. I would further add that here we are finding out that option which should be mentioned, which has been discussed. So, first one, Hobbes and Rousseau disagreed on the fundamental nature of humans, but both believed in the need for a strong state. Clear cut connection you don't find about this in the passage. That Hobbes and Rousseau disagreed on the fundamental nature of humans. One said that humans are intrinsically good, the other says that humans are intrinsically not good. Next, Bregman agrees with Hobbes that firm leadership is needed to ensure property rights and regulate rights. There is no mention of Bregman that he agrees with Hobbes about firm leadership. We have not read this in the passage. The author of the review believes in the linear theory of human nature. He has mentioned the linear theory of human nature, but there is no mention whether he believes in it or not. Let us look at the passage once again. The last paragraph here. In any case, the fear of civilization collapse, Bregman believes is unfounded. It is a result of what the Dutch biologist calls linear theory, the idea that just below the surface, our bestial nature is waiting to break out. Okay, so it is not clearly written that he supports it, right? He has made a mention of it, and then he says that it seems quite misleading to offer the false choice of Rousseau and Hobbes. So he very clearly states that if you give the false choice of Rousseau or Hobbes, that is going to be very, very misleading. When clearly humanity encompasses both. So we are somewhere between these two polar ideas. So let's come back to the question. Clearly, our answer choice is D. Most people agree with Hobbes' pessimistic view of human nature as being intrinsically untrustworthy and selfish. We can again be reassured by going back to the passage. The very first line, the very first paragraph. Although one of the most contested concepts in political philosophy, human nature is something on which most people seem to agree. Here we find this answer, on which most people seem to agree. By and large, according to Roger Brimmer in his new book, Humankind, we have a rather pessimistic view, not of ourselves, but of everyone else. So here, this we can be understood as most of the human beings, right? So our answer is very clearly pronounced, very prominently we can see. Of course, we have eliminated other answer choices, but A is the here. This one, D is the correct answer choice. Most people agree with Hobbes' pessimistic view of human nature as being intrinsically untrustworthy and selfish. One thing more we have to pay attention to, it is not necessary that the questions will appear in a sequence as per the discussions made in the passage. The questions can come from anywhere And even the level of difficulty of the questions can be different. The first question, the very first question can be difficult, and vice versa can also happen, right? Coming to the next question. According to the passage, the collapse of civilizations is viewed by Bregman as. Now, here we have to take into account the view of Bregman, not the author. The view of the Bregman is being asked. Pay attention, students, not the author's own views. First, a temporary phase which can be rectified by social action. B, a time that enables changes in societies and cultures. C, a sign of regression in society's trajectory. D, trajectory is a path. D, resulting from a breakdown in the veneer of human nature. So, what is the collapse of civilization as viewed by Bregman? Collapse. Collapse of civilization जब होता है तब क्या सामने आता है? It's a temporary phase which can be rectified by social action. There's no such mention made that it can be rectified. Means it can be, changed. Rectification talks about that something wrong has happened, and then it is not necessary that the collapse happens only because of the wrongdoing, right? Then a time that enables changes in societies and cultures. So, yes, here you find that this is a time in which the changes can happen in societies and culture. The change of opinion, the change of view, the change of policies, the change of philosophies when one culture, when one civilization collapses. Still, let us examine C, a sign of regression in society's trajectory. Not necessarily. Rejection means going down, है ना? Opposite of progress. ऐसा कोई जरूरी नहीं है कि when a civilization collapses, it is a sign of regression in society's path. Then last, resulting from a breakdown in the veneer. Veneer wali theory was given by Mr. Wall, where he says that there is a thin decorative covering on outside the human nature, and when it is broken, the actual bestial nature comes out. So it is not always true. It is not related. It is not resulting from a breakdown in the veneer of human nature. कि ये break हो गया and the bestial nature comes out. This is not the meaning of the given line. So we are clearly left with answer option B. That it is a time, it is an era, it is a duration that enables changes in societies and cultures. That from a non-agriculture, we go to agriculture and so on and so forth. Last question. The author has differing views from Bregman. So here, very important, the crux of the entire passage. What are the views in which the author doesn't align with those of Bregman's? Let us examine. First one, the role of pathogens in the spread of infectious diseases. Role of pathogens. This we had read in the second paragraph when we found that when the civilizations appeared and the domestication happened, at that time the animals gave rise to the diseases. I mean, not categorically, but yes, after the coming of animals, many diseases also entered human life. Second, a propertyless mode of living being socially harmonious. Now, this is quite a tricky option. Let's see the role of agriculture in the advancement of knowledge. Agriculture, the role of agriculture. A civilized society being coercive and unjust. Coercive means that which forces you. Now, if you look at all the options, here you find that he agrees, Bregman agrees. When you go back to the passage, you find that this is what is considered to be true as far as the author is concerned. The author agrees with the views of Bregman that the role of pathogens it is definitely prominent or significant in the spreading of the diseases. Now, B, a propertyless mode of living being socially harmonious. We are almost tempted to take this answer choice. We may feel, but it is not differing. What is our question asking? The question is asking which choice is different. I mean, author is not supporting और author's view same नहीं है ब्रेगमैन के कहाँ पर ये बिल्कुल लग रहा है ये डिस्कस किया है but there is no such clarity. Since this is mentioned, we may feel कि यहाँ पर है. It's not like that. Then, see the role of agriculture in the advancement of knowledge. Here also, it may be possible, yes, that when agriculture increased, the knowledge also enhanced of the human beings because this, the civilization proceeded further. Then science and technology also came into play. Then a civilized society being coercive and unjust, a civilized society has it to be coercive means in the negative sense, unjust. Is it necessary? So here you find that the author does not agree. Let us see how. Let us go back and look at the here, here, from here, from here. That's a great deal of reassuring human decency of reassuring human decency to be taken from this bold and thought provoking book, and a wealth of evidence in support of the contention that the sense of who we are as a species has been deleteriously distorted. But, but it seems equally misleading to offer the false choice of Rousseau and Hobbes when clearly humanity encompasses both. First is this line, and the second proof is here. Like much else in this book, the truth is probably somewhere between the two stated positions. So we cannot take one pole, we cannot take one choice. It has to be somewhere between. So on one end, on the one hand we have Hobbes, on the other hand we have Rousseau, and author seems to agree with something which is midway between. So clearly, when you come to this answer choice, you find that the last one, this one, a civilized society being coercive and unjust, this is not the crux of the matter. It's not like that. So he has views different. That a civilized society may be just also. A civilized society may not propel or push their people to involve in acts against their free will, against their choice. So, students, let us know which other passages you want us to discuss here on this channel, and do inform us about the questions that come to your mind. Have and view the previous sessions which have already been published. You will find the entire playlist, and I'm sure these sessions will benefit the student community. So share with them and view them, and कीप कनेक्टेड, स्टे ट्यून्ड। और अगर अभी तक लाइक नहीं किया है तो जरूर एक लाइक दे करके जाइएगा, और चैनल को जरूर 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 सब्सक्राइब करके जाइएगा। थैंक यू, ऑल द बेस्ट।